Now that all my pictures have a border, I want to add a title. So I'm going to take my cursor and I'm going to put it in front of my first picture. And you can see it blinking right there in front of the first picture. So I'm just going to hit return or enter to move the pictures down a little to make room for my title. Then I'm going to place the cursor above the pictures, and I want my title in the middle. So under alignment and spacing, I'm going to click align center. It's this button right here. I'm going to choose a font that I want, and then I'm going to make it bigger. And I'm going to title my comic A Big Pumpkin. And I'm going to put underneath a little smaller by Mrs. Wendig. There, so now we have our title. And I did this first because the next step, I want to make sure that my pictures don't get moved around. The next step that we have to do is we need to add our speech bubbles. We're going to go back to the object palette where we got our pictures. But this time, we're going to use the Shapes tab. If you scroll down to the bottom of the Shapes tab, you'll see several different options for speech bubbles. So you can choose any one of these speech bubbles that you want, but I want to make sure that you use a speech bubble so that this really looks like a comic. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our speech bubble and we're going to drag it on top of the picture where we want it. Now it's going to move all the pictures around, but don't be scared. Don't do anything right now. Go to the formatting palette and we need to change its wrapping. So under wrapping, instead of tight for the style, and you'll see this little icon with a dog, you want to choose in front of text. And when I do that, it puts everything back in place like I want it. You can also decide to change the color of the bubble. The color is under Colors, Weights, and Fills. Under Fill, choose which color you want it. And you can choose the color of the line. Under Line, by the pencil, click on the small arrow and choose which color you want the line. Now I've got a problem. I want the dog to be asking me what's wrong. And my speech bubble, the little triangle that comes out of it, is pointing towards me. So to move the little triangle of the speech bubble, or whatever kind of bubble you're using, click on this yellow dot and you can drag that over to the dog. There, the speech bubble is just the way that I want it. Double click on the speech bubble and you'll see that the little toggle buttons around it go away. Now you can enter the text. Make sure you choose what you want your text to look like. And often I do this before I write the text in just because it's easier, and especially because we're probably going to use 10-point font so that we can fit enough words in our speech bubbles, and you'll want to do that ahead of time so that you know how much text you can get in the bubble. So I'm going to change the font and the size. I'm going to make sure I put a question mark in there. And there, my first one is done. You continue this step until you get all of them done. And then it will look like this. So each speech bubble, the arrow is pointing to who is talking, and sometimes you don't need a speech bubble. Like for this one where my dog brings me a little pumpkin, I didn't really want any text in there, and that's okay because sometimes there's not text in an image. So now I've got my whole comic strip done. It's titled, it's got my name on it, I've got my pictures with a border, my speech bubbles, everything looks great, and it's time to print. So simply say File and Print. It's going to ask us where we want to print to. Make sure it's not Adobe PDF because that's just going to make a PDF of your comic. And you're going to click a printer. I'm at home right now, so it doesn't have the printers at school, but you'll see a printer here at school, and you can go ahead and choose that and click Print. And now you've got your comic strip all done.